And tonight we have horrifying new details about what happened to Vanessa Guillen, the soldier from Houston who disappeared from Fort Hood.
It has been confirmed that human remains were found about 20 miles from Fort Hood, and it is believed that those remains are those of 20-year-old Private Vanessa Guillen.
In the case of Fort Hood soldier Vanessa Guillen, more human remains were found today in the same area of interest outside of Belton.
Allow me to say that this has been and continues to be an extremely trying and painful time for the family and the friends of Specialist Guillen.
One suspect is dead and another is in custody in connection with the disappearance of Army Private First Class Vanessa Guillen.
All right, so I want to talk about the disappearance of Vanessa Guillen. Vanessa went missing on April 22nd. She was last seen in her barracks parking lot. There's a whole lot of speculation as to what kind of went down and where she could possibly be. But the highlight of this whole case is that this stemmed from her being sexually harassed and wanting to make a report, but being afraid to make that report. So Vanessa had been in contact with her mother and telling her that she was being sexually harassed by one of her sergeants at Fort Hood, where she was stationed. She was a 91 Fox, small arms repairer, and so she worked in the armory with the weapons, small arm weapons. And she was supposed to be doing maintenance checks on some of the weapons, and in order for her to do that, she had to go to another armory unit and also perform maintenance checks on their weapons, because typically when you're in charge of weapons of a particular unit, you're in charge of all the weapons that may not all be stored in the same arms unit. So she was supposed to go over there to check their weapons out. And when she got there, she did her checks, she signed her paperwork, and she was supposed to be proceeding to the motor pool next. This is the story that was kind of blasted out there as to the series of events and why it took over, a month and a half to figure out what actually happened. So she had never specified to her mother who it was that was sexually harassing her. She had only said that it was one of her sergeants. So her mother said, let me know who it is and I'll take care of it. She insisted that she would take care of it on her own. So in Vanessa's head, this was a tall order. So she had witnessed several other female soldiers try to report some sort of sexual wrongdoing or sexual misconduct, and nothing ever happened to it. And after I finish telling you kind of what happened to Vanessa, I'll explain to you why she would possibly have that feeling for those of you who don't already know. So she disappears April 22nd. Fast forward, the investigation has gone on. Army Criminal Investigations Division has performed over 300 interviews in connection with this case, trying to figure out what happened to Vanessa. Why did she disappear? Did she run away? Is she actually missing? So investigators have said they suspected foul play in the whole situation, but they did not have any indication that she was being sexually harassed. I see a lot of people online who are kind of confused about this, but it's very difficult for you to have information about a sexual harassment if people didn't witness it, and there's just not a whole lot of information on this case particularly, because it sounds like the circumstances that we know about would be circumstances that would be private. They definitely wouldn't be something that's being done in front of people. So it's very possible that people are unaware, and people were unaware that something was going on. But just to kind of lay the picture out for you guys here. So April 22nd, it wasn't until June 30th that the remains were found, right? So 2 months removed. They find remains 30 miles away from Fort Hood. They can't identify these remains technically just yet because it's so few and far between. They're so mutilated and so degraded that it's very hard to identify the human remains. So on June 30th, they find the remains, and then they identify a suspect, Specialist Aaron David Robinson, another soldier from the same unit. He's just from a different armory unit, but he's from the same unit that Vanessa is from, and he's one rank ahead of her. So they identify Robinson as their suspect, and as soon as Robinson found out that they had found human remains, he fled the base. He fled Fort Hood. He was taking off. He was getting ready to run. On July 1st, Wednesday, July 1st, they found him. They located him, presumably through his cell phone. And as they were attempting to make contact with him, as they were attempting to approach him, he brandishes a firearm, points it at himself, and blasts himself. He kills himself. He dies on scene. He's declared dead on arrival to the hospital. And so they've now identified a second suspect, a civilian that is the separated wife of a former Fort Hood soldier by the name of Cecily Aguilar. Now, Aguilar and Robinson have been dating for a while now. So where she plays into all of this is that Robinson called her to help him dispose of Vanessa's body. So what we come to find out later on is that Vanessa was being sexually harassed, presumably by Robinson. And as Robinson was told, presumably by her, that she was going to report the sexual harassment, he couldn't have it. He was not willing to go down for this. And so he entered her arms unit and bludgeoned her to death with a hammer. Now, once he did this, he put her in what's called a tough box and loaded that into his vehicle, which people saw him loading into his vehicle, which is part of why he became a big suspect in the case. He loaded into his vehicle, took it off the base, dropped it off in the location where he wanted to bury her, and then he proceeded to call Aguilar, have her meet him out there. Then they chopped up the body with a machete, they mutilated it, and then they burned her. They burned her. They realized they couldn't burn everything. Everything wasn't going to burn completely. So they dug a small grave on the 22nd. They dug a small grave and put her body parts, whatever was left, in it. And then fast forward to April 26th, they went back to try to burn it more. They cased it in some cement and they dug a different grave and tried to spread it apart. But in between all of that, they had realized that some of the body parts weren't going to burn. So they left some grave sites that they had used to burn the body initially were still around, which is why we hear a lot about now the three grave sites. There's 3 grave sites because there were 3 grave sites, but some of them that they found didn't have any body parts in them or anything at all. The one that they found on June 30th, the one that they found on June 30th did have remains in it, and they're presumed to be Vanessa's, but they haven't been DNA confirmed yet. So I see all over Facebook, and I just want to say to all the service members, men and women, that are speaking out about their experience with sexual assault, sexual harassment, sexual misconduct while being in the military, that we are here for you. We hear you. We love you. You guys are so powerful. You inspire us so much. We admire you. Keep on fighting the good fight. I know how difficult it is to be in your position as an active duty service member and have a lot of bounds as to what you can and can't say. So my heart goes out to you. I thank you guys so much for sharing your story to let people know that this is real and this is something that we have to talk about. Now, as I kind of mentioned earlier, there's a reason why people feel like retaliation in the military is such a huge object that they would prefer to not say something about a wrongdoing. And so I just want to start by saying, being a member of the military, being an active duty service member, in some cases even a selected reserve service member or whatever component, I really can't put into words how uncomfortable amount of control the military and the government has over your livelihood when you sign up to be a member of the armed forces. So here's where this kind of stems from. Your day-to-day living is whatever the military wants it to be, right? When you join, especially as you're newer, right? And during your first few years at different duty stations, you're the new guy or the new girl or whatever you want to call it. And that's an extremely uncomfortable feeling. You're away from your family. You don't know a whole lot of people. You really don't know what you're doing, what you're supposed to be doing. You haven't found your place yet. You haven't fit in yet. You have a whole bunch of onboarding things you need to do for your unit. You have a whole bunch of, like, anytime somebody moves, there's a whole lot that goes along with it. It's the same thing for the military, and then some. Your onboarding process for new commands is a lot. It's a lot. And there's a whole lot thrown at you, a whole lot to learn. You meet new leadership. And there's just such an amount of control that these people have over your day-to-day living that somebody like Vanessa would fear. And I'll sort of walk you through this so that you really understand what she's feeling. She reports sexual wrongdoing or sexual misconduct. And whoever she reports it to may know Robinson, right? They may know him personally. They may be a friend of theirs. Or, they may have some sort of perception in their head that they've been lied to in the past, or they've seen service members get in trouble for stuff that they didn't do, or maybe certain service members have a reputation to have done this in the past, have sort of made these accusations, these allegations against people and ended their career. So there's this big cloud of black smoke kind of associated with somebody speaking out to this type of stuff. So there's a process in place for sexual assault reporting. And if you sat down and you listened to the brief that these people give about it, you would really feel like, wow, this is a bulletproof program. Like, this is everything's all good, restricted, unrestricted reporting, and there's so many options and the resources are great. But here's the key. There's a lot of people that don't know what they're doing. When they get that phone call, they don't know what to do. They have no empathy or anything for your situation, right? They're just doing it because it's a collateral duty and it looks good when it comes time to be evaluated as a service member. And 9 times out of 10, even if you leave commands, and I've seen this myself in my own experience, even if you leave a command completely, we've had service members go from Japan and be moved, expedited to the States to a different command to get away from some sort of sexual allegation. And they get to the new command and people know about it. But they're not supposed to know about it, but they know about it, right? So no matter what safeguards they put in place, chances are people are gonna know what happened, and you're always gonna have fan favorites, right? You're gonna have Robinson's friends saying, no, he wouldn't do that. This chick's lying. They don't know Vanessa from a hole in the wall. So now she becomes a liar. Now she becomes this person that makes these false allegations. And so her image changes and her day-to-day life changes. They can make her do they can't outwardly say to her, I'm treating you differently because of this. Right? Maybe people will make some remarks like idiots. I mean, that's commonplace. That's commonplace in the military. People say stupid things all the time. But they can kind of under the covers treat her differently and treat her worse because they know some things. And they can really kind of mask it as if she's just getting unlucky. They can really change the narrative so that it appears that it's just a coincidence, and that as long as they don't say outwardly that they know about this situation, nothing will ever happen. So what we don't understand is that you can't quit when you join the military. You go to jail if you just leave, right? So Robinson, even if he wasn't suspected of murder, if he left Tuesday and Wednesday, they got him, he'd go to jail because he deserted his post. That's illegal in the military. Another thing I kind of want to point out that maybe some people don't know, the military has another set of laws that we follow. So of course we're subject to regular state, federal, local laws. And then the military has what's called the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which kind of is parallel. A lot of the laws are the same, right? Like rape in the real world is rape in the military. But there's other things that are different. Like cheating on your spouse in the real world is ethically wrong. Cheating on your spouse in the military is legally wrong, right? So there's some differences. You can do jail time for a lot of different stuff. If you snort coke in the real world, they're probably just going to give you a ticket or something for public intoxication, or they may just send you on your way, tell you to go home, whatever. In the military, you snort coke, that's illegal. You go to jail. So I just kind of want to paint that picture for you a little bit. There's laws that are different in the military. We share majority of the same laws as the real world, but we also have kind of our own on top of that. So if you're being prosecuted through military justice, it's one thing. If you're being prosecuted through regular state and local justice, that's a whole nother thing. So the way that this all kind of happens in your own work center is that people just don't realize they can make your day whatever they want it to be. If that's 4 a.m. to 11 p.m. 5 days a week, then that's 4 a.m. to 11 p.m. 5 days a week. Guess what? It sucks. Oh well, get over it. Like, I don't think you guys understand that there is an inherent desire for people to have this control over your life, because there's no other situation in the world that you could have that much control over somebody's life legally. There's so much that goes unseen. There's so much stuff that kind of stays under the radar and nobody ever knows about it. And the reason why is because people are afraid. If I speak out against this, what if the person that I'm talking to doesn't agree with me? Then what? Then now I show everybody my cards and everybody knows that I said something. I'm that whistleblower. Even if it doesn't matter if it was wrong or right. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares, right? The peanut gallery does not care. The spectators do not care. Wrong or right, doesn't matter. There's gonna be people on both sides of this thing. And you have to face that, right? And a lot of it it's difficult to prove. It is. A lot of it is very difficult to prove. Like if somebody comes up to you and makes a snide remark, how do you prove that? You can't. But that's your day-to-day life every day. That's how people look at you. That's how people treat you. And then when they're looking for somebody to dump the terrible work on, you're going to be it. Every day for the next however many years of your contract, you have no out. You have none. Most people join the military to get away from their current situation, right? For one reason or another. So do you think it's just, I get there and I run into a wall and all of a sudden I don't want to be in anymore? No, of course not. It's not that simple. It's not that simple. You can't just go to somebody and say, I don't want to be here, and most of them are going to listen to you. No. Put your uniform on, get to work, and keep moving. But this has been happening in our military forever. Right? As long as men and women have been together in the military, it's always happened. But we just don't hear about it because the military is very, very quiet. It is. The military is a private body, and a lot of the stuff you can't talk about. Right? A lot of people don't know this. Why did I decide when I got out of the military that I was going to start, saying some things that were a little bit outlandish? Because I can't when I'm in the military. Right now, the people that I'm speaking for, they can't. They can't say anything. They can't tell you guys. So but this has been happening. Look up the Air Force, the Lackland Air Base scandal in the early 2010s. These were civilians that were trying to become airmen in Air Force basic training, and they're getting raped and molested and you name it. They're getting sexually harassed, assaulted, the works. They're getting treated so poorly in what we in the military regard as the best branch. So imagine what's happening in the other branches where there's less women, where, there's the treatment is less than better. Like this is real. This is reality. There's people that live this every single day. And unfortunately, up until this point and up until something happens, people don't really know. I mean, it's ignorance, truly. People just aren't aware because you're in a position when you're there that you just can't say anything. Because the world that surrounds you is against you. That's the way you look at it. That's the way it makes you feel. You're a suspect just like anybody else. That's the way everything feels. And in a lot of cases, and you'll see during the stories that I share, in a lot of cases, nothing happens. You say something, and maybe their work center gets moved, but nothing happens. And now a new group of people are aware of what happened. And your reputation is just going further and further down. And you got to deal with that for however long the rest of your contract is. So let me know what you guys think about this whole situation. It's very unique in its population. But it's important for us to talk about this stuff. It's important for us to blast the message out, to let people know that they're not alone. Because unfortunately this happens every day, and we just don't know about it. We don't know about it, and our service members are deathly afraid of saying something. And that's a problem. That's a problem. These people put their lives on hold. They put their lives on the line. They inconvenience themselves significantly to join the military, to do a noble thing, and this is how they're treated. So let me know what you guys think, and if you have stories to share, please feel free. Thank you all. See you in the next video.